I would imagine that you're very passionate about seeing these things as somebody who's working with kids,
Oh,
and you're going in the
absolutely.
ministry. And one of the things that I talk about with kids nowadays is that we used to have a lot of like very bright people going in the ministry, like the best of our groups would be chosen for ministry. And now I don't know if people consider that, but I still say it to kids like, hey, if you're really smart in school and you got a great future, you should consider that there's a home for you, a job for you to do in ministry, and you'd have work to do for the rest of your life. And you look back at that at the end and know that you did the right thing, that you served the community in a way that you couldn't do otherwise, and to consider that that's why God gave you all of these things. And sometimes I even have pastors discouraging me, well, you don't want to, but I truly believe, one of the best career decisions that you could do even now would be to choose the ministry.
It was really not something that I fancied myself doing because of that I was like, I'm not sure I want to do that. Yep. But it just evolved over time because I really enjoyed doing the youth work. I thought I was pretty good at it, and I could see kids' lives changed. And I had that model, that guy that he was a football player and that Keith Brown, and yet he was a incredible pastor, loving, caring guy, funny, just tremendous guy. Yeah. And so it evolved into where I just got a little more mature, and I started working with the parents and doing speaking and things like that, working with the dads. I knew I had to work with dads, I had to work with families, and so I got to love it, really.
Yeah, and I shared that with you. They found out I was a counselor like early on in our marriage. As 20-something, and they were like, you're a counselor, you should be in student ministry. They called it you need to run our youth group. Back then, that's what they would say, you're a youth ministry. And I found, and we were we were employed with a church for 7 years, part-time, as I was being a counselor. My wife and I would do that, and just found that was the greatest thing. I probably prayed in public with people for the first time, a group of kids. Learned, very keenly what God's word was, as I had to prepare for Sunday school, but just learned about families. As they came to the church and were saying to me as a youth group leader, what do we do with this? Describing the same kind of things that you're describing, and learn that is real, and learn to care about it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I would have went a different direction, but this was presented to me over and over again. All these things that the families were struggling with, just in this little local church.
Yeah.
And it changed my life.
Yeah, and I worked with some hoods, we called them back then, and that was really intimidating to me because I was thinking, oh my gosh, some of these kids aren't that much older than I am, or I'm not that much older than they are. And even in the 60s too, you had the radical feminists. Now, there were a lot of things that needed to be changed regarding women in terms of their equal pay, equal opportunity, things like that. Some of the laws, rape laws and so forth. But some of the radical feminists embraced abortion and an easy divorce, and said, like Betty Friedan's book, the Feminine Mystique, that being a homemaker is like being in a Nazi concentration camp. Yeah. Well, that image of motherhood was really cheapened by some of those, and probably that evolved out of some hurt in their own lives. But that was not a good model for a lot of women, young women. So we had the anti-heroes that were a real distorted image of manhood for the men, and you had some damage done to the women. So you have all this cultural upheaval that affected young people and affected families through divorce and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you talk about feminism, I'm not sure, it's a very like traditional thing to be able to identify what feminism is. It's so ingrained
Yes,
into the
right.
culture now, and it's so supported. I think even by conservative Christians, people who would be, very progressive, I think have become acculturated, with that viewpoint. So maybe that's an episode all of its own. What does feminism mean to us now? But definitely change the family as things. I like to lift up being a pastor because I don't think it's valued in the culture. But being a mother or being a father is completely devalued.
Yeah, it's such a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah.